In this short recording, we're going to look at the rest of the material for the week one. As remember, in our live lecture, we really focused in on emphasizing that accounting is much more than a technical numerical exercise. Where accounting involves power, it involves politics, right? It involves human behavior, and it ultimately is a process between accounting information that's prepared, it's then presented, and then it's used and interpreted by people. So what we're trying to emphasize is accounting has a huge impact on an overall organization, which a lot of you may not appreciate when you're looking at from that technical perspective of a month end or a set of financial statements. And one good example of that is the budget that's happening next week. Think of the budget as a process whereby your ministers, Minister for Public Expenditure, the Minister for Finance, they are meeting lobbying groups the last couple of months, all of which are trying to lay a claim on certain funds. And of course, that's complicated with the context of COVID as well. Same in organizations. Each department, each division will have trying to lobby to get more funding, whether it's capital expenditure, training, research, etc., to grow their department. So that all involves politics. It all involves who's going to get the money, how are you making a claim to that money in terms of interpreting the financial statements or justifying whether or not you are entitled to or should get more capital expenditure. So I want you to think about that, particularly for the continuous assessment, which you're going to see next week. How does accounting play a role in your organization? Right? Is it really there for a power or dominating perspective where only certain people get to see accounting information? Is it there, for example, for an empowerment, where managers use accounting information to give constructive feedback and to try and improve people and improve people's performance? So what way does accounting information play a role in your organization? Is it constructive? Is it destructive? Or could it be improved on? And a lot of that is going to be part and parcel of what you might do in your continuous assessment. So the other part we want to look at this recording is, I suppose, the different purposes management accounting or accounting in general can be used in an organization. Like your traditional perspective is the rational use or the rational economic use of management accounting information. And that was kind of one of the seminal papers that were done decades back in terms of, well, there's three types of questions, the rational role of management accounting information, just to improve decision making. It can be a scorecard questions. So for example, if you want to know, is the organization doing well or bad? Is it doing well? You look at the accounting numbers. Are we making a profit or are we making a loss? It will help you direct your attention. What problems should we focus in on? Let's look at the different costs, which ones are way above budget, which one revenues are way below budget. So it allows you to direct your attention to particular things, and it can also help to solve questions. So for example, management accounting can say, which is the best objective? How many bums on seats do we need to make this flight break even? How many diners do we need for the restaurant to break even on a particular night? So those are the kind of, if you wanted to use accounting for what we typically, or the stereotypical use of making the best decisions, that's what the traditional purpose of management accounting is. But we know when humans are involved, you can have dysfunctional decision making. So where people have different agendas and they use accounting information not in a rational linear decision making approach, but for alternative purposes. And that's what this other academic paper, the Kellyanne Pratt paper, is focused in on. And maybe you can start to see some of these roles appearing in some of your organizations about how accounting information is used. So for example, the first one, that accounting information actually takes a symbolic purpose, right? That the management accounting systems in an organization, they actually collect a lot more information and they present a lot more information that is actually used in an organization. And the reason for that actually might be it's a signal that if you're saying, oh, well, we collect all of this information, we have store by store profitability, we have product by product costing, even though it's never used, but you can use that as a signal that you are a competent and you are a capable organization. So you may use it, even though you mightn't use the information, it's sending a signal that managers are rational and that we have the information at our disposal. So you might argue, God, I might be able to see that in my organization, that we have all this information, it's all prepared in packs, but we never use it. Is it prepared in packs because your superiors, the head office or someone else wants to see it, even though it's not being used? So maybe it has a symbolic purpose or it's a signal to give an indication that this is a very structured, a very well organized department. Maybe management accounting or accounting information has a political purpose to use to achieve power. So we talked about power and accounting as well, because those are people who have access to the accounting information, they have the power. They know which stores are performing well, they know which stores are performing poorly, or they know which salespeople are performing well, which salespeople are performing poorly. And that could be the case between owners and staff, owners and employees as well. That if you're not allowing people to see the accounting information, is there a reason for that? And we talked about that in terms of companies who have unlimited accounts. You don't know how profitable the likes of Dunn Stores or Keelings are. And maybe there's an intentional reason for that because it'll reduce the bargaining power that those organizations have. Right, so think about that, the power of accounting organization in organizations, and maybe how accounting moves or doesn't move between organizational levels and across organizational departments as well. And is there a reason for that? Right. You could also have accounting information for a legitimating or retrospective purpose. So what we mean by this is you use accounting to retrospectively justify a decision. So you might go off and open up a plant or launch a new product and then go back and say, well, sure, it was a success. Look at the accounting numbers, right? So again, it's important to figure out, are you proactively or prospectively using accounting information to use that to justify a decision before it happens? Or are the decisions being made ad hocly on the fly and then trying to retrospectively say, well, this is why we went with this decision? So kind of it's a retrospective use of accounting information. And finally, then, linking back to power again, is accounting being used for a repressive or dominating purpose, where it's a mechanism for management control? You're not letting employees see how profitable the company is. You're not letting them see where the profitable stores are, where the loss-making stores are, because you don't want to create conflict in terms of demands for extra pay, demands for extra resources, which may happen. So again, think about it. I've only given you snapshots of the purposes here, and this is covered in a lot more detail in this article I mentioned in class, the Kellyanne Pratt, 1992, Purpose and Paradigms for Management Accounting, Beyond Economic Reductionism. So it said it's not just about cold, hard economics. It's about psychology. It's about organizational behavior. It's about politics. And look, I don't want you to read the full paper. I've said page 225 to 227. This is the paper here. So the pages are down the bottom. Page 225, which is the first page, to 227. So the first 3 pages, you can read that. And then you go on, and I said read 234 on another couple. 234 onwards. So the purpose of accounting, the rational purpose. Then they talk about symbolic purpose. Then they talk about here ritualistic, mythical, etc. So there's an interesting one that you may pick up on things. Think, I can actually see some of that in my organization, because that's what that little thought box here is for. Is consider your own firm. What type of accounting information is used? Is it a formal or informal process? So do you formally sit down once a week and talk about the results? Have you a weekly sales or performance meeting or a monthly meeting? What type of indicators are used? Is it solely financial? Is it solely non-financial? Are you an organization, for example, that is very what we call budget constraint? That means it's very focused on hit the budget, whatever possible. No excuse if you don't hit the budget. Or are you others that are very lax in terms of the budget? Say, look, budget is there, but it's not be all and end all. All right, it's merely a guiding. If you have a good rationale for not hitting the budget, well, that's a different organizational focus. And look, a lot of that can come from where your managers are coming from. Right? Sometimes your managers will be accounting background. In that case, they'll be very much focused on the accounting figures. Other times, your managers may be non-accounting background, and then the budget may not take a bigger focus. But we're trying to get you, yes, you're going to learn about technical, abstract accounting things, but we want you to apply your knowledge as well. That's what the whole thing about the MBA is for. We're trying to link it back to your current role. All right. So take a look at that article when you get a chance. The only last piece then is, look, the history of management accounting in terms of using accounting information within an organization to plan, control, and make decisions, a lot of that has not changed in decades, up until about the late 80s, start of the 90s. So from early 1920s up to 1980s, 1990s, there was very little, if any, change in management accounting. And there was big criticisms about that. One very famous book around relevance lost two famous academics over in the US, that the rise and fall of management accounting. But since then, there's been a huge inflection point, and there's been huge developments of new tools and techniques that are trying to meet the demands of a modern organization. And we're going to look at some of those. In week 3, we're going to look at what activity-based management is. Very much linking into quality to control, etc. How we can look at our activities in organization and influence performance. We look at balanced scorecard, how to measure performance. Life cycle costing and target costing, we're going to look at week 3 as well. Life cycle costing is costing a product over its whole life cycle, something people involved in software or pharmaceuticals would be very familiar with. Target costing is something as a marketer's approach to costing. It's don't worry about what the cost is now. Focus on what the price is, what's your price point, and work back to what do we need to build this product for. Come up with a target cost. All right, so there's a huge amount of new developments, the likes of environmental accounting and quality accounting, that have come up in the last 2 or 3 decades, and they have come from a demand from organizations. We have new types of businesses now, new ways of looking at businesses, and we need accounting tools and techniques to keep up with that. And that the big rise now, of course, is data-driven accounting and data analytics. But we're going to look at that over the next couple of weeks. And some of these tools and techniques may be helpful for your continuous assessment, because there is going to be a bit of self-directed research as part of that as well. All right. And finally, the drivers of change, of course, for those changes has come from the economic and financial environment. There's much more volatility now and competition in organizations that they want to be the best. They want to drive down costs. They want to keep competitive, right? IT, both in terms of hardware, but also in terms of data analytics capabilities, software available, ERPS, enterprise resource planning systems. So all these SAP, Oracle, there's huge capability now that a lot of this, the data is there, it's just about being used. And that's what management accounting is trying to keep up with, particularly in terms of data analytics and trying to glean insights from cost control and from revenue management. Environmental performance is hugely important the last couple of decades. So we're now looking at sustainability, we're looking at corporate social responsibility, and we need accounting tools to quantify a lot of that. And finally then, which are evolving business models, social media models, online business models. These are different business models than the traditional make it, sell it, where a traditional accounting very much fitted in there. Now where a lot of companies don't actually make anything, a lot of them can be middlemen or distribution type businesses. We need to evolve our accounting metrics and evolve our accounting, I suppose, tools to suit those types of businesses as well. Just keep in mind that accounting is moving. It might be a lot slower than other types of domains such as marketing, etc. But there is a demand for new tools as businesses evolve. Right? So your takeaways in this short recording, number 1, is accounting is a process. It's involving people, it's involving power, it's involving politics, and it's much more than a technical exercise. I want you to read that Kellyanne Pratt paper, the relevant sections, just to get an idea of the different types of purposes accounting information can be used for in an organization. And finally, just remember, accounting is evolving, particularly the management accounting side of things. The likes of environmental accounting, quality accounting, life cycle costing, and we'll look at a lot of those in the next couple of weeks to see how is accounting evolving to meet the needs of organizations. And if there's things that are maybe happening in your organization, you can bring up those as examples, or you might be able to use them in your continuous assessment as well. All right. So that is wrapping up the rest of the week 1 material, and we'll see you all for week 2 next week. Thank you.